Welcome to Make-A-Land Bedtime Stories for Adults, where we explore profound truths through captivating stories. In tonight's tale, we delve into the wisdom of the quote, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." Join Make-A-Land and her family on a journey of self-discovery, where they confront the challenges of arrogance and the power of humility. On a serene evening at the family cabin nestled deep within the woods, Make-A-Land, her younger sister Micah, and their brother Tika sat around the warm glow of a crackling fire. Their grandparents, Make and Lank, watched over them with loving eyes as the family prepared for another night of storytelling and reflection. Micah, the youngest, was in a bit of a huff. Earlier in the day, Make had tried to share some wisdom with her about a task she was struggling with, but Micah had dismissed him. "I already know how to do it, Grandpa," she had said, brushing off his advice. Now, as the night settled in, she still carried a bit of that stubbornness. Make-A-Land, noticing her sister's frustration, decided it was time for a story. "Micah, do you remember the quote, 'It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows'?" she asked gently, catching her sister's attention. Micah frowned, confused. "But if you already know something, what's the point of learning it again?" Make-A-Land smiled. "That's exactly what we're going to talk about tonight." The family gathered closer as Make-A-Land began to weave a tale from their grandfather's past, a time when Mike himself had learned this lesson the hard way. "Many years ago," Make-A-Land began, "Grandpa Make was just about your age, Micah. He was confident, perhaps too confident, in his knowledge. One day, he was given the task of leading a small expedition into the forest, a job he thought he knew well." Make chuckled softly, remembering the days of his youth. "I thought I knew everything about that forest. I'd been through it 100 times. What more was there to learn?" "But," Make-A-Land continued, "Grandpa Mike didn't listen when the elders tried to warn him about a new path they had discovered, one that was much safer and shorter. He thought he knew better." Micah leaned in, intrigued despite herself. "What happened?" "Well," Make-A-Land said with a knowing look, "as they journeyed into the forest, Grandpa Mike realized that the path he knew was overgrown and treacherous. It was far more dangerous than he had anticipated. They lost precious time trying to navigate it, and the group ended up in a much tougher situation than if they had taken the new path the elders suggested." Tika, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. "So, he learned the hard way that it's impossible to learn if you think you already know everything?" "Exactly," Make-A-Land replied. "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows. Grandpa Mike's experience taught him the value of humility, and that no matter how much we think we know, there's always something new to learn." Micah's expression softened as she listened to the story. She realized that her stubbornness earlier in the day had closed her off from learning something that could have helped her. "What happened next?" Micah asked, her tone more open now. Mike smiled, his eyes twinkling. "I learned to listen more and assume less. From that day on, I approached each new piece of advice, each lesson, as an opportunity to grow, no matter how much I thought I knew, and I became a better man for it." "There is only one way to true wisdom," Make-A-Land added, "and that is to approach each moment with an open mind and heart, ready to learn." As the fire crackled softly, Micah nodded, understanding now the importance of the lesson. "I think I understand now, Make-A-Land. It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." Make-A-Land smiled warmly at her sister. "That's right, Micah. Never be too proud to learn. Wisdom comes to those who are willing to admit that they don't know everything." Tika chimed in. "I'll try to remember that too. It's a good reminder that we can always learn something new." Family sat in peaceful silence for a moment, each reflecting on the importance of staying humble and open-minded. As the night deepened, Make-A-Land spoke once more, her voice soft but firm. "Remember, Micah, Tika, Mike, and Lank, it is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows. Keep your minds open, your hearts humble, and you'll always find new wisdom on your journey." With that, the family shared a quiet, contented moment together, grateful for the wisdom passed down through generation. In this story, Micah learned the importance of staying humble and open to new knowledge, no matter how much she thinks she already knows. This timeless wisdom reminds us that true learning only happens when we acknowledge that there's always more to discover. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe to Michael Bedtime Stories for Adults. Share this story with your friends and loved ones, so they too can embrace the power of humility and the joy of learning.